So once again, this is Megan Jackson. Welcome to the January 11th Scrapbook Live. I have a project today for you from the Creative Memories blog. It's a project that used the Deep Blue Sea papers and the Scallop Wave. I really liked Scallop Wave when it first came out. You're like, oh, do we really need another wave? But I really liked it. And in fact, I was really sad when it went away because it really is a very nice non-ocean wave. When you really want, just a lake wave, right? And just those gentle swells. You don't always need like crashing waves. So Scallop Wave was a really nice one. But you can get this handout from my blog. The best place to get it is going to be on my website where I have the PDF download. If you're trying to download off of a JPEG image, getting it from my blog where it's a PDF, that's going to be your best option to print. So it should print full page. Hopefully the font is a size you can read it. So if you're watching it on Facebook Live, it's the first comment. If you are watching this on a YouTube replay, you'll see it in the description, has a link to the blog post. So, and also just a quick comment on the blog. If you go to my website, megganjax.com, and you just scroll down to Scrapbook Live, there's a little square that talks about Scrapbook Live. Click on that. It'll actually take you to all of my Scrapbook Live. So you can see, and in those blog posts, I have the videos, I have the handouts. So it's always the good resource to go to if you need something from Scrapbook Live. You'll have a quick link to the video and you'll have the PDF as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I'll switch over to my table so you guys can see what we've got going. So I've got my handout. It got a little folded last night in my mayhem after power hour, cleaning my desk and getting ready for today. It's got a little messed up, but we have the handout here all ready to go. And one of the things that we note here is, like I said, they used the Deep Blue Sea, they use mirrored scallops. This does use a border maker cartridge. I'm going to be playing with Woven Scallops today. So this is a border maker cartridge. It is new, but it's only available from your advisors. So talk to your advisor if you're already working with someone. Advisors out there, if you're watching, you can get this under the advisor exclusive section of the website when you are logged in. And if you're not working with an advisor and you would like to get a copy of this or buy one, there'll be information on my website on how to do that. So I have some photos. We always start with the photos, right? I look at the layout, like, do I have some photos I think are going to work with this? And I have these 3 little photos. These are just random photos of my now 8-year-old when he was, I think not quite 3 here. And he loved to dress up. So he's got his little SWAT uniform. We're at the Children's Museum where he was rocking the construction. And then of course the little firefighter. So these are just 3 very random photos that I have. So I thought that would work well here. They used 2 photos, but I'm just going to kind of put 3 across the middle. We'll still get that nice effect of the top and the bottom of the detail. So that was kind of my thought. If I really wanted to, I could custom peekaboo pocket this to have it open up if I feel that it's too crowded. So I'll be able to play around with the photos, and I can also crop them a little bit narrower. As you can see, I've got a lot of extra space here. So that I will determine after I've got the actual layout done. So I decided with these photos, you can see I've got a lot going on, a lot of color, a lot of craziness in the backgrounds. So I wanted to go with, based on colors, I was kind of thinking like what collection would work good. And I decided to go with Sparks of Magic. We're not big Disney people. So Sparks of Magic, in terms of like using it for trips to Disneyland or Disney World, we haven't done, but I do like Sparks of Magic for other just kind of fun layouts. So what I've got going on here, and apparently I'm going to be missing a piece of paper. It's going to be really disappointing because I pre-cut. Anyway, I have Sparks of Magic here. You're going to need, here in the layout, they talk about, they use a piece of navy patterned paper in their background. So you can see a very thin line outside of it. It's literally, look how we're going to cut a piece 11 3/4 inches to go around the top. So literally this back piece is 1/8 of an inch all the way around. You can replicate that a couple of ways. I have this black shimmer paper here. I literally could just cut my back. I'm going to use this fireworks page as my very background piece. I could take this and I could cut out, or I could, cut out the back if I wanted to, cut this down to 11 3/4, layer this on here, and so forth. The other option you can do with this is cut very, very thin strips. I could cut some 1/8 inch or even 1/4 of an inch if I wanted to. I could make this a little bit wider and I could just put those on the outside, put the strips on the outside edge. So that is an option too. If you wanted to just cut some really narrow strips and just adhere those to the outside edge of your paper, you can mimic that same look. I probably will go ahead and just cut this. I'll just cut it as a frame. So I'm going to use the this fireworks paper. And then what I did is I picked out 5 different pieces of paper, or 5 different color patterns to go with. I went with the tonals. So I've got this aqua tonal, I've got this beige tonal, there's yellow tonal, and a red. And I'm supposed to have a second red piece. And of course, it disappeared on me. So that's really, really interesting that it did that. So I'm looking around. I apologize as I'm doing this because I usually is way more organized. So I'm just trying to figure out where, because I have a second red piece. I was going to do a black piece in there, but I'm going to use black as my background piece, or my, I'm going to use black as my mats. So I don't want to use the black there. So I'm just going to go back into my Sparks of Magic. Oh, here it is. It got filed away. There it is. I'm going to use 2 red pieces. And you can see here when I kind of lay them out to get an idea, I'm going to frame either side with the red, come in here, and that's going to be my papers, my strips. These are 2-inch strips. All right. I've already pre-cut them because I needed to make sure I had enough. Some of these were cut from scrap, so I needed to make sure I had enough to do it, and also to make sure I like this. Originally, I was going to use a black piece in there, but I decided I had this black, well, it was going to use it. I was going to use this black star. I had another piece of it. But what I was worried about is I'm going to use black mats. And I thought, well, you're not going to be able to see the mat over here. But if I just stick with the black or the red, you'll be able to see it. And I'll have plenty of black as accents, right? That'll be my accent with the cardstock. So that's how we're going here. So I'm going to go ahead. I want to put the background together first, and then we'll take a look at the strips and how we're going to use those strips and make the decorative part of the layout. So I'm going to start with my background piece. I do not need to use, I only have a very thin strip showing, so I'm going to cut out a frame out of the middle, and that frame will actually be what I can use to create my mats. So this black, I'm using black shimmer. It's not going to go to waste. I am going to go ahead and cut a, I'll just cut a 1-inch frame because that's easiest. I think a 10 by 10 center piece will be fine to make mats from. So I am just lining this up at 1 inch on my trimmer and cutting from 1 to 1. I've explained this before, we talked about this before. We've done it there. The white line on here, I line up on the ruler that's on the metal blade guide of my trimmer. And I just cut from 1 inch over to 11 inches, and that gives me that frame. You can use the binder clips if you want to. I have a tutorial on my YouTube page on how to use the binder clips when you're making those inside cuts. After a while, you may find that you don't need the binder clips as you get used to the technique. It is a great paper saving technique, that's for sure. Now I have this piece that I can use to make the mats. So I'll set that to the side. So I've got my background. Now I'm going to cut this fireworks paper. I need to cut this down to 11 3/4 inch. This is step number 2. And I'm just going to double check. I don't think I've already cut anything off this paper. You ever do that where sometimes you think you're working with a 12 by 12 and you're not 100% sure that you are? I'm just double checking. I was pretty certain this was a full sheet, that I hadn't trimmed anything before, but I wanted to double check. All right. So I just need to cut this down to 11 3/4 inches. So I'm going to do that. Take off 1/4 inch from 2 sides. There we go. So now you can see when I lay this on here, I've got just a very, very narrow border, but it does do a nice job framing the layout, especially if it's going to be a single page layout, and that does give a nice effect. So let me go ahead and adhere this into place. I'm just going to use some adhesive around the outside edge. A quick tip when using the adhesive here, I do like to keep my finger up here on the spinny wheel. Acts a little bit as a brake so that I don't have to worry about the tape just running away. Every once in a while it likes to do that, but if I keep my finger up there, it just acts as that little bit of a brake so I can get nice small little sections. I don't need a whole lot of tape. The tape is pretty sturdy. It's not going to go anywhere. Once you get all the pieces on. There we go. Okay, so there we can see we got the background done. Got the fireworks mounted onto that starry shimmer. And so that's all set to go. So now we're ready to move on to the next step. And our next step is they want us to use our strips. So you need 5 2 by 12 inch strips. And I've already cut those from various scraps. You can mix and match your collections. This is a great opportunity to play with those patterns and those colors. And then you're going to need a base piece of paper that is cut to 10 inches wide by 12 inches tall. I am actually just using the cover sheet this was the Leave Nothing Behind texture pack. It is the same weight as our designer paper. I'm not using a piece of cardstock here. So this paper will not be shown. So it really doesn't matter what you use. We just need to go ahead and adhere our pieces, all of our strips onto this piece of paper. And I'm just going to lay these out. I want my beige in the middle. Lay these out. And then we'll go ahead and get them all adhered into place. So I'm going to use some just repositionable. You can use regular adhesive. I'm being a little bit generous with my adhesive. When you punch, you may find that you have to, after we punch, we may find we have to come back in with adhesive and add a little bit more depending on how the punching goes. But that's easy enough to do. Just lining these up. I want to keep my seams as tight as possible. So I'm trying to really keep that seam between the two colors nice and tight. I don't want to, if at all possible, I don't want to see any of the white from behind. That's what I'm trying to avoid the white from behind. I will also tell you in this particular case, I think it's best if you work with non-directional patterns. I think it's going to be a little bit easier. I think when we go to actually make our punches, we have to keep the direction of the paper in mind. So if you have non-directional, that's going to work best. And all of my patterns here are non-directional. So one more piece to go, and then we'll be ready to move on and start using our punch. I'm using a border maker cartridge. This whole thing is set up on using 12 or 2-inch wide pieces. So I have a little bit of extra here. I am going to go ahead and just give that a quick trim. Sometimes when you cut things to a certain width over time or over several cuts, it ends up being a little bit, I don't know, off. Like if you're off 1/32 of an inch over several pieces, that ends up to being 1/8 of an inch, which is the case here. All of my little pieces are probably just off just a little bit, and therefore I was just a little shy, but that's fine. That's fine. So the next step that they want us to use, they demonstrate this using a border maker cartridge. All right. So the border maker cartridge, it has a 2-inch bite to it. If you don't have a border maker and we want to use an edge style border maker cartridge. So this is the Woven Scallops. It is an edge style, meaning it stays attached to the paper. When I cut it, it's going to cut a decorative edge, but it will stay attached to the paper. You can use a border maker cartridge. It's really set up, as you can see, each one of these segments shows that it bites, it takes out the design, shows the design fully. So that was kind of how this worked for this layout. Now you can also use frame punches. So I have the geometric frame punch here. It also has a 2-inch bite to it, meaning that for like geometric frame, I would see 1 half circle for every one of my 2-inch strips here, right? I would see that. So you could use that. If you're going to use that, you just want to make sure you line it up at the black mark to start. I would feed this in with my edge at the black mark there and start punching. That should get you those pieces. Now, you could probably use a regular border punch if you wanted to. That isn't a frame style or a border maker cartridge. The thing you're going to have to keep in mind there, though, is that it's not maybe going to set just perfectly on top of each one of these. Your pattern is going to be a little bit overlapping, spilling over into each color, because our regular border punches are, the overall width of those is wider. It's closer to 2¼ to 2½ inches. Okay, so I am going to be cutting, I'm going to use a border maker cartridge. I'm using Woven Scallops. I'm going to put this in here, and I want to make sure when I put this in my paper holder, this is the paper holder, this piece here is part of the border maker system. And I am going to go ahead and punch one side of it, but I need to line my paper up to one side, close this, and then I'll go ahead and punch starting here at the top. Be careful when you're feeding your paper in. You don't want to accidentally grab an edge. All right. So there we can see I've got that punched decorative edge, right? Okay, looks great so far. I am going to keep my punched out pieces, all right? I'm not sure. I'm debating whether I'm going to come in and ultimately backfill in some of these pieces here on my layout as such, just to add some more decorative color in the border. I don't know, but I'm not going to throw them away. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't throw those pieces away. Set them to the side if you want to. Maybe you do want to throw them away. It really depends on the punch you're using, but I'm going to keep mine. It's by far easier to dig them out of a pile on my desk than it is out of the trash. So here we go. I've got that side. Now we're still working with step 3 here, and it wants me now, I need to trim and measure this to 8¼ inches. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this at 8¼ inch. Flip this around. I've got my cut edge here. So I want 8¼ inch at the top of my pattern, 8¼ inches. Give it a nice 8¼ inches. Okay. And this will ultimately get mounted to the bottom of my layout, or 1 inch up from the bottom. So you can see here how that's going to go. It will come in like this. Now I need to go ahead and punch the top edge. Now the top edge, I don't want to just feed in the same way, right? I don't want to feed this in and punch this edge, because ultimately I'm going to have to flip this around then and see how it doesn't match up. So I need to go ahead and look at it. Here's ultimately the edge I want to punch. See how my colors mirror each other? The strips mirror each other, and this is the edge I want to punch. So I'm going to keep this in mind. Pull my trimmer out of the way. And I want to punch, keeping this as such, I need to feed this in to my border maker system so that when I'm looking at it right here, I've got it in my paper holder. I'm going to hold out my punch edge. These need to match. Double check before you punch. This edge that you're punching needs to mirror the edges that you've already punched. Okay? That's the key to this. You want to make sure you punch the correct edge. It's not a huge deal if they don't match up, but if you want them to be matchy-matchy across from each other, you need to make sure that you just take your time on this step. When you put the edge that you're punching needs to mirror the edge of that you've already punched. So I should be good. And I'm going to go ahead and come down the line and punch these pieces. Once again, I'm going to save those pieces that have fallen out. Now this piece, they want us to go ahead and trim to this last piece that we just punched, they want us to punch it, or to cut it at 1¼ inch. So I'm going to come in here, and they want us to cut this at 1¼ inch from the top of our piece. I've got it here at a 1¼ inch. It's pretty narrow. Yeah, that'll work. You may have to adjust this a little bit depending on how deep your punch is. I think if I was, well, no. Yeah, you might have to. The border maker, the border punches that are the frame punches, those have a bigger bite, a deeper bite to them, especially if you look at something like Damask, the new one we have, right? This Damask, I think this punch may already actually be 1¼ inch itself. Let's take a piece. I mean, it's really close. Yeah, the overall bite, if you look at this, from top to bottom of the pattern is 1¼ inch. So if you've happened to use the Damask flourish punch, you are going to probably have to give yourself a bigger section here. What you might end up having to do then is come here and cut off a little bit of the bottom. You're going to shift that border detail down just a little bit because you've got that bigger bite to your punch. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're cutting this top piece, is if you need more room at the top because you have a bigger punch, go ahead, shift it down a little bit. You can always pull a little bit extra off the bottom if you're trying to maintain that square. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 1¼ inch. Woven Scallops doesn't have that deep of a bite. I'm going to have enough pattern at the top to see that edge. There we go. And I've got this piece. It can be, I don't know, an accent piece on another page. I've got some options to do with this. So it's just a 10 by 10 piece with ultimately some squares. Okay. So here we go. You can see how this is starting to take shape. Now, I've got some in the middle here. I need to cut a piece of paper that's going to be a middle, so that they recommend using 1¼ inch by 10 inch strip. And they say using a pattern paper. I wasn't able to really find a pattern paper in the paper pack. I didn't have one that really worked for me. So I think I'm just going to use some white cardstock here, and I'm looking around because I thought I had a piece, that whole thing where I thought I was doing a great job preparing. It's kind of just proving me wrong. Oh, here it is. A piece of white cardstock in there. Yep. I'm just going to use some white cardstock underneath. That I want to just have that nice contrast, you know, the white versus the colors, and this white, it's just going to work the best. Okay, so I need to cut this. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, before I cut, I'm going to lay these out. I'm going to grab my ruler, right? Whenever you're working with punches and tools that are different from the blog or the instructions, they use Woven Scallops, or excuse me, they used Scallop Wave. I'm using Woven Scallops. You might need to make adjustments. I think this should roughly be 10 inches. And here we are. We're 10 inches from top to bottom. And I know I'm 10 inches wide. So there I've got my square. Now what I need to do here is I need to look. I want my white to fill all the way across. So I think I need to cut it. I'm going to actually cut it closer to 2 1/4 inches because I've got a lot more space that I need to cover. And a 2-inch piece across here should work just fine. So I'm going to grab my cutting mat as I work on placing these. I'll also be using, if I can figure out where I put it, there it is, my T-square ruler. I need my New Year's resolution should have been that I would be the type of scrapbooker that cleans up after every project. That was going to be my resolution, right? That I would do a good job cleaning after each one, but I don't. So my T-square gets tossed to the side. My rulers do. I think I have probably 10 rulers floating around this desk. Okay, so I've got my background on here. What I need to do is I know this piece needs to be 1 inch up from the bottom. And before I get going there, I am going to go ahead and cut that 2 1/4 inch piece of white paper. I'm doing 2 1/4 by 10. By 10 inches. I'm going to double check, because remember I had to slice off a little bit here so I can see that I'm a little bit hanging over. So what I'll do is I am going to just trim off a tiny bit. That didn't work very well. There we go. Cut off that tiny bit. So that now I am the same width as my paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and adhere this edge to the background. Just kind of down here. I don't want a lot. I want to just have this bottom edge clear the bottom of my punch so that I don't see any paper through it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put adhesive on all of this, and I will go ahead and use regular adhesive. I'm going to grab my T-square ruler to help me line this up. It should be 1 inch from the bottom and then 1 inch on either side. So there's 1 inch all the way around. When you're using your T-square ruler, you always have to make sure first that your paper is square on your background or on the mat. Line up my ruler here. I'm going to line it up at 1 inch, double checking both sides, right? That it's 1 inch from the bottom. And then I'll be able to put this on and I can line this up. There we go. That should be fairly square. Oops, just making sure. Okay, Now I'll be able to come in here at the top and do the same thing. I'm going to put my T-square ruler at the top 1 inch, and I'll be able to slide. I'll be able to adhere that top piece that I've cut or I've punched. I'll be able to adhere that. Now I can see here that I've got a little bit of adhesive issue, right? I don't want these pieces sliding off. So once I get those put into place, the whole thing into place, I'll come back with a little more adhesive and get those tacked down a little bit better. There we go. There we go. So there you can see how it's starting to come together. I'm just going to do a gentle lift and put down some adhesive to make sure these pieces stay in place when I'm moving them around. When you're putting on a page protector, you don't want those pieces lifting. Check my bottom edges too. I look to be good at the bottom, just making sure that they're not going to lift. I think that's fine. Okay, so there is our base page. All right, that's all set to go. So now it's coming back to my photos. So I've got my 3 photos, and I mentioned that I was thinking of just coming across kind of like this, right? Just getting the photos in there. You can still see that top edge. I still have some things here at the bottom. If I wanted to come across the bottom with a border, another border, I could. In fact, I might do that. I'm looking to see where I might come across the bottom with photography chain. I think that might look really cute because it's just about the photos, right? I love bringing in just that photography element. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and cut some mats. My photos are already, I sized them. They are cut to 3 3/4 inch wide by, I think it's 5 1/4, roughly 5 1/4 inch tall. So I need a 4 by 5 1/2 inch mat, 4 by 5 1/2 inch mat. So 4 by 5 1/2. So what I can do here is I'm going to bring this out to 5 1/2. And I'll cut it at 4. This is my 10 by 10 square. This part you can customize as you need to for your photos. This last section here, I will cut it to 4 wide by 5 1/2. These should work for my photos. Not a big mat around there, but just enough. And you can see by leaving that black out of my 5 here, I'm letting that mat stand out even better. So coming in there. And now I think what I need to do is, it's going to come in. I have some embellishments that I'll be able to do. I have just out of the Sparks of Magic, I've got the different embellishments to work with. These are just some great, doesn't necessarily have to be a theme park, any kind of just a fun event. Definitely has some theme parks, things in here for sure, but there's lots of stuff that is really just cute to be able to use. Just says picture perfect, which would really go nicely with the theme if I were to come in here at the bottom. I do see a question about why did I need the white strip behind here? I wouldn't necessarily. the design that they do, the overall design here, that is what was part of the Creative Memories, the blog instruction. And the reason they had to do that was because of their paper choice. You would not have really been able to see the scallops in here, and they wanted to accent the scallop, the scallop waves. And so they put a different piece of paper behind. So that's why I went ahead and did a different piece of paper, but I wasn't able to really find a completely different piece of paper that looked great in here. So I just went with white. Probably what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll just list my journaling right in here. Just do a little, a little bit of some writing across there. I could have left it with the fireworks in the background. So I'm seeing another question about can you share these layouts? You can share these layouts really anywhere you want to. If you're part of any layout sharing groups, you're more than welcome to share these in there. I'm trying to find a piece of black shimmer paper so I can punch. You can also, if you're in my Scrapbooking with Meggan, you're more than welcome to share them in there. Last week, there was quite a few of you who did the page from last week. Love seeing all of those. I mean, we're seeing all the paper combinations. Love hearing that was a layout you may not have attempted on your own, but you felt confident after seeing the video to do so. That's really exciting. I love hearing that. That's why I do this, right? To show you guys the techniques, kind of a little bit behind the blog project. So we'll go ahead, and I'm just punching that photography chain. I'm going to use this as an accent at the bottom of my layout. So come in here, and of course I have nothing taped down, so everything's sliding all over the place. Let me get my photos on their mats. I am really enjoying black shimmer paper. I actually find myself reaching for that more than black cardstock. I don't know. I wasn't sure how I was going to use so much shimmer paper. I'm not a glitz and glamour kind of person, but the black, I don't know. For me, it usually just adds enough, just a hint of sparkle, not anything too overwhelming. So here we go. All these adorable. I miss Cody's crazy hair. We let his hair grow out while he was little, and then we got it cut just before he turned 3. So I think these are all photos from the summer before he turned, or the spring and summer before he turned 3, and we cut his hair. It was really, really blonde and had these little curls to it. And then when we cut it, that baby blonde was gone. The baby curls were gone. So here we go. And one of the things I did mention before is whether or not I wanted to come back and start putting in these pieces, right? And I don't know, it helps if I put them the right way. I don't know if that's what I'll do. It's kind of fun to maybe add this detail, but I'm not sold 100% on it. To dig through my here and see what I've got. So we'll have to see. I have to figure out whether or not adding these, I don't know. I do kind of like it though. It might be worth the effort. You guys have that where you're just not sure, like, man, that's gonna be a lot of work to do all that, but I kind of do like it. So I'll just lay some of them in place here, and we'll be able to see. It's just a matter of finding the right combination of the colors, right, to get them into place. So that might be a piece a little bit that I play with a little bit more, but you guys can see how that is starting to take shape, that those pieces in there might be just a nice, it also does help a little bit so there's not quite as much white feeling across there. And so that might be the route I go, putting those into place. So that's going to take a little bit of time. I won't bore you with that while I come, work on those pieces. But that's, why I said you want to save all of your pieces. You don't know what you might want to use them for. So I've got all my punched pieces up here and I can start playing around with them. I don't know whether I'll mirror them from each other. So many possibilities that I can do there. So, yeah, so Lee's saying the same thing, that sometimes it can be, definitely can be tedious, right? To put those pieces into place, but I think the results will be worth it. So I will take care of that as part of my wrap up and figure out exactly how I'm going to do the stuff with the embellishments, because there are some really cute ones to include. And it's going to be just a fun little layout to show, I don't know, a moment in life, right? These random, very, very random photos of Cody dressed up. He doesn't dress up so much anymore, unless it's to put on sports gear. Sometimes he just puts his sports gear on and wears it around the house. I think he's got big dreams in life of playing lacrosse. So we will see how that all works out. All right, so I'm going to flip up here. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate those of you who were able to get online or a little bit earlier, the 30 minutes earlier, so that we were able to get all this taken care of. So like I said, I am headed to visit Tessa in Indianapolis. So that's going to be a fun time. I will have some photos to share with you guys. And we will be back for Scrapbook Live next week. I'm not sure the project yet. I've got to see what's going on, what sparks my interest. And then we will just keep grooving our way through every week, right? I mean, it just keeps flying by. It seems like Wednesdays like to turn up a little bit faster sometimes than I think. It's like, oh my gosh, tomorrow's Scrapbook Live. Or more than likely, usually what it is, oh my gosh, I don't have Facebook Live posted on my blog yet. I better go ahead and get that done. So everybody have an enjoyable week. I will see you all next week for sure. For those of you that are in the the Winter Frolic, I'll be sharing the throwback layout for tomorrow. I'm really excited about it. It's fun. It's cute. I hope you guys will enjoy putting that one together. If you have questions or are interested in Winter Frolic, you can go to megganandtessa.com and find out more about it. It's an 8-week scrap challenge. We are in week 2, so we still have 6 more weeks to go. And I think that's kind of the big thing. I've had some people asking about Page Makers class. Tessa and I are waiting to see what comes out. We think Friday this week, we should see a preview for any mid-January collection. So there's a little hint of one in the catalog called Serenity. We're waiting to see whether or not that's going to be released for next week. And we will have more details on exactly what we're going to do for our next Page Makers class. But there is one coming. We're just not 100% sure which collection we'll be doing it with. All right. So thank you so much once again for joining us today. I appreciate everybody with your comments and whatnot. I'll have the video posted later this afternoon, and we'll have the final layout ready to share as well. So everybody enjoy your day. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.